So we had one reviewer ask my opinion on some of these books. I pick up one occasionally and try and read it. My take on books is usually I avoid the sex and avoid the profanity. I used to avoid the violence, but I found it. I still
You
avoid.
avoid everything if you avoid the
I
violence.
avoid the very bloodies still, but the other it's not as bad anymore. Anyway, so I thought I would go through the books that I've read that we've reviewed and just give a little bit of my take on them.
Sounds good.
Breaker of Horizons. That's
Okay.
2 books long. It's one of those isekai type of fantasies where he comes back as a creature,
Right.
goes and basically levels up and fights. I would actually compare it, since I'm reading it right now, I'd compare it to Chrysalis.
Right.
Very premise is similar. Chrysalis, he's an ant growing. The other one, he's
A
a
newt.
newt growing.
Yeah.
Um, I like both of them. I would actually, if I were comparing the two, I'd rate Chrysalis significantly higher. It's more entertaining. The storyline doesn't get lost. I'm in the middle of book 2, so I don't know beyond that. But there's a story there that I want to find out what's going to happen that is a little bit lacking in Breaker of Horizons.
Right.
So, and that's for me, a storyline is important to my enjoyment. I can enjoy some of the grinding and growing, but if I really want to enjoy a book, it needs a good story to go with it. Skyward is another one. I really enjoyed that series, though the offshoots of that series, the sub series, weren't nearly as well written. So the problem I had was they carried the story along. Like you would miss stuff if you missed those
Right.
offshoots.
If you don't read the side stories, you miss out on stuff that you need to know for the main story.
So I really like the sci-fi fantasy of Skyward, and I do remember mentioning to you, or maybe you mentioned to me, there's a lot of female angst and female thoughts going
You're
on in her
you're
head. That,
always in her mind and her anxieties about whether she's doing the right thing.
so that can be repetitive, but
Yeah.
I would still rate that one pretty high. Legends of the First Empire. I've read that one. That's another one by Michael J. Sullivan. We've done 2 or 3 on
We've done
his.
two of them,
We've done Legends of the First Empire is the latest one series to come out, and then the Crown Tower we just barely reviewed, and
which is Riyria
Chronicles,
Revelations.
and we haven't done Raya
That's
Revelations.
right. Riyria
Um, I would put the Legends of the First Empire my least favorite of those 3 series,
Okay.
but I would put the other 2 series as just flat out amazing. Although one of them, the middle book, I think they're trilogies, maybe not. One of them, the middle book, I really hated the ending of one of the middle books. It's just like that was dumb. Just made me mad. But otherwise, the books were just excellent. So I would recommend all 3 of those series. Though I'd recommend the Riyria Revelations, probably the highest. Crown Tower or the Riyria Chronicles next, and then the third one just got a little bit lost in my opinion. It was still good. It just wasn't great.
It explains the other two.
It does.
It gives you the prequel to the other two.
So I'd definitely start with the other 2, and if you like them enough, then go for the third. Chrysalis, I'm enjoying right now. It's about an ant that starts out as extremely weak and slowly grows and gains pets. And you mentioned there's some world building in there. I'm in that part now, and interesting to see where it's going. It's like I don't know where it's headed quite, but I have some ideas, and it's interesting to watch it unfold and grow and get bigger. And so far, the story hasn't gotten lost, and so it's still really entertaining. The reader, we listened to it on Audible. The reader is a lot of fun to listen to.
Jeff Hayes, he's an excellent job in reading, especially with Chrysalis. Well, he's also the one Blaise Corbin's novel Apocalypse Cultivation. He's the one that does that.
Okay.
He's an excellent reader. He's got more voices than anyone I
He
know.
does. So I'm enjoying that one a lot. Mage Errant. I read the first book in that, Into the Labyrinth, and I've started the second book. I originally started with that being one book I'd read to my son, and it was interesting. I had to cut out a few swear words. I really wanted to like the series. My biggest problem was it's boring in a number of spots. So it is it is an entertaining book, a book that I was struggling to read to my son, and now that I picked up Chrysalis, I don't have any desire to go back to it. So I might go back to it. In my opinion, 8, 9, somewhere in that range. The next one is another Brandon Sanderson, Secret Projects, Tress of the Emerald Sea. I listened
Mm-hmm.
to that one with my kids while we were on a road trip. It's fairly short, not finished, which is a little bit disappointing, but it was another.
Actually, That is a side story in Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. It gives you a glimpse of something that makes sense elsewhere, and they're not going to
Oh,
continue the story.
okay.
There are four of those types of stories that give you a glimpse of somewhere in his Cosmere.
So it was an excellent story. I would have liked there to be more, but it was excellent. I enjoyed it. He Who Fights with Monsters. I'm on the fifth book, and it's a lot of fun. It's a really good isekai lit RPG fantasy. The story of the main character as he gets warped into this new world and cannibals try and eat him, and he just generally is fun to listen to, fun to follow around. His powers are extremely dark, and so it's interesting to hear how he develops them. The story evolves in a way that is interesting, even to book five. My biggest problem is he really likes his sexual innuendos.
Yes.
There's a lot of them in there, a little bit of language, but my second issue with the book is he really hates religion.
Yeah.
So much so that I feel like he's comparing the cultists in the new world that try and eat him to religious people in this world. And I guess that hits a nerve with me. That seems like an unfair comparison
Yes.
from people that are, as a person that's trying to be devout religious, I don't feel like I fit in the cannibal murderous cultists like he seems to classify everybody in. So
Right.
I don't know if I'll keep reading that series, even though it's really good. Pillars of Reality. This is one I read a while ago. You recommended to me. I really enjoyed that series. It's a pure sci-fi fantasy, no lit RPG elements at all. It's about a mechanic and a mage as they're supposed to be arch enemies, but are forced together to survive multiple times until something starts to build between them. And it's a fun kind of romance, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
that builds. And so I really enjoyed that series, and I'd highly recommend it. Protector of the Small. I read that one recently, and that was a good series. And I would probably put it a 9. I would look for more books of hers that follow that series. I don't think
I've got two of them. I've got the third one, but I haven't listened yet.
I don't know if I've listened to the second one yet. I might
Okay.
have, but it was a good book. It's definitely a female take on things. You deal with as a guy things I don't deal with, like interest in guys and worried about whether or not they think you look good or whether or not they like you, and not something you typically find in your normal fantasy books. But it's in this one, and but even so, I still enjoyed it. It's just a person that's trying hard to be good, hard to be the best she can in a world that doesn't necessarily value her. Mother of Learning is another one that you recommended to me. That one is just a complete 10 in my book. Absolutely recommend it. About a young man that keeps dying, coming back to life as he figures out why he's dying. So it was just entertaining. I think it was like what 4 books in it, and just entertaining through all 4. It does have a little bit of lit RPG elements, sort of, in that he gains power through gaining knowledge, and each reset he gains more knowledge.
And he doesn't lose it
Yeah,
over the resets.
by the end he's an extremely powerful mage.
Right.
I really really like Mother of Learning. Defiance of the Fall has a lot of books in it, 13 books, really long. I felt like it had a really strong beginning. The first few books, excellent, fun to read. My biggest problem with the series is I feel like the story got lost. The initial premises of I need to get strong enough to save the world. I mean, it didn't start out that way, but it grew to that. And then eventually he does save it, book 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there, and then it just continues, and he still needs to get stronger to save the world, but he's going off on all these adventures trying to just get stronger. So my biggest issue with it, the beginning is great, but then it loses some of its edges. I don't know where the book's going. I don't know. I mean, it's just fight big bad guys every once in a while and win.
He's trying to protect the earth from all of the forces that are outside that within 100 years after the fall have free reign to come in and take it over.
Yeah, and I don't like some of the morals in it. As I would see it, is it's okay to lie, cheat, steal, kill
Right.
to get more powerful as long as I'm protecting the people I love.
Right.
And I don't necessarily agree with that moral compass. So that also lost a little bit of it for me. And then I think the last series that I've read is the Titan series. So Nova Terra is the beginning book. And
Right.
that book, the premise is he's in real life, he's this really big, strong guy that has a body that can't handle it. And so to try and help him with that, they are going to add these nanobots to his system. So in order to add those nanobots to his system, they put him to sleep. And while he's asleep, they're going to put him into a reality game. And so he starts living life for the first time for real in this reality game where he doesn't have any fear of hurting himself by just moving. It's a take on him having what we consider a normal life, or at least a normal fantasy life. And so I would say the first couple books were really, really, really entertaining, really, really good. Um, my hang up had more to do with he's in a game and occasionally he'll die and he'll go to a reset location and then come back. And that kind of killed a little bit of the tension for me, knowing that, I don't know, my mind as a programmer said, well, somebody's designed this into the game. So how much really freedom does he have? He has to live within the game limits. And I guess that just killed a little bit of for me. It was still an excellent series, though. I'd still put it at 9. I read all the books all the way through. You said there's more series around him.
Well, once you get to the end, book 10, I think it is, in that series, it goes into the Tower series, and you go to a different world. They ascend to a different world.
So I haven't sought out the next series, as you've come out with other 10 books that are really good. So, like I said, I'm on Chrysalis right now, and it's excellent. Hopefully, it stays that way through book 5 or book 6. Is that series finished?
No,
Oh, that's too bad.
it isn't. I don't know how far they'll take it,
I
but
really wish some of these authors would have an end goal in mind and stop it
stop the series somewhere.
while the story's still going. Anyway, so that's my take. There's some books that we haven't reviewed. Um, I guess I'll chip in if we get to that point. Anyway, hopefully my take on some of these books will help. If you have similar taste to mine, maybe. But
If you have any more suggestions, give them to us.
yeah, there's certainly books that I like to read that I haven't, and books that if they didn't have so much profanity or weren't very bloody, I'd probably try and pick them up. There's a lot there. We have reviews on all of them. We'll be including a link to the full review if you want to watch the full review.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a lot of good reading in there.